Okay, so now that I have my guitar audio track created and I've set it up to accept input from my audio input device, I'm ready to make my first real instrument recording. The first thing I'm going to do is to place that click track we created in the previous chapter into my project. Again, the click track is like an adjustable metronome track that's easier to hear than GarageBand's built-in metronome. So I'll come over to the loop browser, type in click to search for it. There it is. We'll just drag it into its own track, and we'll just loop that out. And I'll just put that at the top since I like the click track at the top. And again, it just sounds like this. Also, the song I'm going to record is in E minor, so I'll change the project key just in case I want to add loops later, and if I do, I'll want them to be in the right key. And the tempo of 120 beats per minute is fine. All right, so we've got our click track. Our project is properly set up. I'm going to make sure the count-in option is on. As you can see, it's on here, which, as you'll recall, gives you a measure to get ready before you start recording. Oh, and incidentally, if you need a little more time for the count-in, you can go to the record menu to count in and change it from 1 bar to 2 bars. But I think in this case, 1 bar should be enough for me since we're just recording the first track of the project at the beginning of the song. So I'll make sure my cursor is at the beginning of the project. I'll make sure the guitar track is selected. I'll make sure I'm getting some sound. Levels are looking good. All right, and here we go. All right, so we got pretty far without messing up, but there was a wrong chord there towards the end. Now, when you're recording a real audio track and you mess up, you have a couple of different options. I could just select and delete the entire region to try again from the beginning, but if you like the majority of what you played, you probably don't want to lose it. Instead, you can do what's called punching in. This involves placing the playhead at the point where you want to start re-recording, making sure the count-in option is on, and then hitting record. GarageBand will then rewind a measure or two, allow you to get ready, and then it'll start recording at that punch point. So here's how it works. Now I know in this case I want to start re-recording here at measure 11. So I'll move the playhead there. Now the other important thing for me to do here is to trim the original region back to measure 11. So again, we do this by placing our cursor in the lower right-hand corner of a region, and I can just drag that back to end at measure 11. If we don't do this, when we go to record, an entirely new region will be written over the first one, which isn't really that big a deal. It's actually a method for recording multiple takes so you can then composite them together, but I'll show you how to do that in its own upcoming movie. In this example, though, I want to have the first region end at measure 11 and have the region I'm about to record begin at measure 11, with the idea being that the two will blend seamlessly together and it'll sound like one take. So in order to do this, I just need to make sure that the two regions aren't going to overlap each other. I'm also going to come up to the record menu and set count in to 2 bars. Which will give me a little bit more time to get my hands off the mouse and onto the guitar. This is especially useful when you're working alone and you don't have someone there to help click buttons for you. All right, so my playhead is at measure 11. I'm going to click record, and you'll see the playhead jump back 2 bars, and when it reaches measure 11, the recording will start. Okay, so we've gotten a little further now. Let's go back and listen to that transition. Okay, so that sounds pretty good, almost as if it were done in one single take. So that's how to do a punch-in. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that when I did the punch-in and the playhead rolled back 2 measures, we didn't hear anything but the click during those 2 measures. Now, I knew which part of the song I was supposed to start playing at measure 11, but it's not always easy to get back into the groove in just 2 measures, especially if you can't hear the parts leading up to the section you're recording. So let me show you another option for punching in. With this guitar track selected, I'm going to come up to the menu bar, and I'm going to choose Track, New Track with Duplicate Settings. I could also just press Command D. So that copies the track, and the same amp settings are applied to that one. With an entirely new track, I can place the playhead as far back as I want to or need to get ready, and I'll be able to hear the original guitar track and play along with it as I record. So let me first listen to the end of this last region we recorded to hear where the mistake was. So the mistake was at measure 24, but let's make the punch point. We'll say it's going to be measure 23. Now I'm still going to trim back this second region again to hide the part that I'm going to record over, just so I don't hear two parts at once at that point. Now I want to warn you that when you trim a region, you want to make sure that no other regions are selected. Let me scroll back here. Notice that because both of these regions were selected, when I trimmed that other region back, the first region got trimmed as well. Let me select them again by holding Shift and you'll see it. Notice both are moving in this case. I don't want to have that happen here. So we want to make sure that we deselect by clicking off. And in this case, I'll select that first region and I can drag that back out so it comes back up to measure 11. But just be aware of that. When you go to trim a region, make sure it's the only region selected, unless you intend to trim more than one region at once. Okay, so I've got the second region trimmed back to the point where I want to punch it in, but this time I can just move the playhead back as far as I like, and I'll be able to hear the guitar part that I played originally, and I could play along with it or just use it as a cue so I can come in at the right point. So I have the second guitar track selected at this point. In fact, I can just take off count in because I have plenty of rollback time now. And we'll hit record and record the second track with the same settings. Okay, and that gets me just as far as I wanted to go for this example. So now it's just a matter of first trimming the beginning of this region I just recorded to the point where I want it to come in, basically right where this region ends, and then I can just drag it straight up onto that original track. Let's hear how that transition sounded. Pretty seamless. So now, even though we did 3 separate recordings, it should sound like one continuous take. Let's give it one listen from the beginning. All right, so that's 3 separate recordings made into what sounds like one continuous take.